Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk, and today we are returning home. We're going back to where the show started. The new head football coach, now in his second season with the Bethany College Bison, is Brandon Robinson. So we're going to have a conversation with him about his coaching journey. Coached in Wheeling, then went to Baldwin Wallace, and now has moved back to Wheeling and is coaching Bethany. So far this year, it's been a little bit of a trek uphill, but still a very short season. So we can hopefully turn some things around. Again, these interviews are done before the season with most of the coaches that we talk to, so this is going to be what they were looking at going into camp. If you're listening to us on Spotify, if you're watching us on YouTube, really appreciate it. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. If you want to follow us on the social medias, it's X, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. The only one that's different is the Instagram page. That's dingo_talk. But without further ado, I got to talk about the picks. Almost forgot about the picks. It was another rough week for this guy. Serenity caught ground on both me and DB. Grove City, wow, really screwing up the picks the last couple of weeks, making their way into the top 25. I'm sure we will talk about that in the OT Pick'em. But without further ado, this is Coach Robinson. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is head football coach at Bethany College, Brandon Robinson. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Coach. We're gonna take you back in the time machine as we do every week, and we're gonna work our way back forward. So, answer me how a guy from Eaton High School back in 2007 decides to take that hour-and-a-half drive to the Columbus area and end up in Old Dominican, or Ohio Dominican, sorry.
Ohio Dominican, you say an Old Dominican, it's been called 1,000 different ways. I never forget when we landed in New York City, we were going to play New Haven, and the pilot said, best of luck to Ohio Dominion in their game against New Haven. So you're not the first one to make those mistakes. So yeah, don't beat yourself up over it. But so I got a call from Chris Oliver, who's now the head coach down in Georgetown College down in Kentucky. He was the offense coordinator at the time at Ohio Dominican. He gave me a call, and he actually left the message on the answering machine, old school answering machines at my house. Just said that he had come across my film and was interested in me coming up on a visit. So I went up on a visit, and I think it was probably mid-January, and it was a dang near blizzard when we got up there. I mean, I woke up, of course, my parents drove, my mom drove, my stepdad drove, and woke up, and it was kind of miserable. It was dreary. It was cold. It was snowy. We had a workout, and I thought I did terrible in the workout. But once we got to lunch, Dale Carlson, the head coach at the time, he went on to be the head coach at Valparaiso a few years later. Mm-hmm. He talked to me just about my game and my film and all that kind of stuff. And from that point on, it really felt like I started to build some relationships with the coaches, and therefore it really feeling like home. And they had an open-faced turkey sandwich going on at lunch with the mashed potatoes and the gravy.
Really sold you.
It stuck with me. It stuck with me. The cafeteria experience matters.
Now, was there anybody else that you were looking at the time, or was that kind of where you fell in love as you went through the process?
Yeah, I really loved UD. Dayton. I went on a visit there, and I thought for sure at one point I was like, I'll be going to UD. And Mike Kelly at the time was the head coach, and he called me up, and it felt like it wasn't clicking. Something wasn't coming, working out on that end. And he called me one night and was just like, we're only taking one wide receiver, and not saying that you can't play receiver here, but we're only taking one, true receiver in this class, and you're number two, and so it didn't work out. And then my other opportunity was at Ashland, and it just didn't feel like home like Ohio Dominican did. So that's how I ended up there.
So 4 years, you get your social studies, you're becoming a social studies teacher, and then you get your master's degree in education back at Ohio Dominican. But you have kind of a back and forth with your alma maters because you graduate, you get to go home and teach at your high school. You get to coach for 3. You start your coaching career there. Why go back home, and then why get into coaching at the high school level?
Yeah, so spring of 2012, I was doing my student teaching at Hannah Lincoln there in Columbus on the east side, and I don't know. I think I was ready to kind of get out of college there for a second. I thought maybe going back to high school and just my love of high school athletics and everything that went into it. And my high school head coach Ron Neenan called me up and said that he thinks he's gonna have a position available on his staff, like a full stipend position. So the thought of going back and coaching at high school and teaching, it sounded really nice. So I mean, I gave it a try for a couple of years and I really enjoyed it. Did it for 3, but probably after year 2, I started kind of getting that itch. Like I want to be a college coach. I loved my college playing experience. I loved the preparation. I loved the lifestyle that went into it. And about year 2 is when I started trying to take steps to get that lined up for going back.
Now, do you think it was easier for you stepping away and then coming back and not necessarily having to work with players that were teammates the year prior, and then now you're the guy now you're the guy with the whistle and the bucket hat and not the guy with the helmet on?
Yeah, no, I think that was something that I don't want to say you have to do it that way, but I do think it was beneficial. The guys that were left, that were older guys, were some guys that I played with. There was a couple seniors that I played with, but they were really good players. I mean, if you stick it out and you play all 4 or 5 years at the college level, you're probably doing things the right way anyway. So it was easier to build those relationships with those guys as a coach. And it's a few years removed from being a buddy of theirs and a teammate of theirs. So I do think that transition was easier. But the one thing I always tell young coaches, I mean, if you act like a coach, you carry yourself like it, they're going to treat you like it. So I mean, it's all about how you carry yourself and the way that you interact with them and your professionalism.
Now, as the GA at Ohio Dominican, you were working with the tight ends a lot. Did that, as a receiver, did that add a dynamic to your guys' tight ends? Is now we're gonna block, but we're gonna run some crisp routes. We're gonna be there. We're gonna show the hands.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously the easiest thing for me to do is work on route running drills, ball catching, ball receiving drills, and work more of the receiving side of it. So I was fortunate. I did inherit an all conference tight end. I inherited another tight end that was really talented as a receiver. On top of that, they were already naturally some really good blockers. So I inherited a really good room just from the standpoint that the year prior, the Ohio Dominican team was coming off of a regional finals game in the playoffs. So I was pretty fortunate just to have good players. So it did make it an easier transition, but it also, I did want us to be able to be threats in the pass game.
And then why the decision to take your talents to Lindsey Wilson for the year? And then now you're working in your position. You're back but for those of you at home, when we get further down this story, this isn't the last time he's going to be working with them big guys down there blocking. This is just the beginning of him working with he's working on the outskirts, but we're going to get to that O-line. Why Lindsey Wilson?
Yeah, so Lindsey Wilson at that time, the head coach was Chris Oliver, who was my offensive coordinator that recruited me at Ohio Dominican. And he had a receivers position come available. It was a full-time position, and the receivers coach had just left to become a athletic director at a Louisville area school. And it's getting into late June, so I know he's probably he doesn't have a ton of options at that point when positions come available. And I trusted him. I trusted some other guys on staff. Brian Foose was on that staff, who was also another assistant at Ohio Dominican, who's now Capital University's head football coach. So there was some ties that made that jump, an easy decision. It was a great opportunity. On top of that, they had built that program into one of the best in all of NAIA. So I knew I was going to be working with some really good football players, some really good receivers, and it was an exciting opportunity. A little bit of a scary, maybe just picking up everything and making that move down there without ever seeing the school or seeing anything that they were doing down there. But I mean, I thought that was just because I trusted the men that were involved with that program.
Now, so you've coached now, you coached at high school. Obviously, we know that's more, most of the developmental stuff that's where it's going to happen. But you've coached at D3 and NAIA. What's the biggest difference between the two, minus the scholarships? I believe NAIA, they have the ability to give athletic scholarships. What's the biggest difference between the players?
I don't think there's a ton of difference between the players in terms of like who they are as individuals. I think the hardest part between scholarship and non-scholarship sometimes is just, up front. I think, there's always a premium for offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and, the ones that are obviously going to have the first shot at getting those young men on campus and getting commitments are going to be the scholarship programs.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it a challenge. I think the nice part about being where we're located, with the Division IIs in Western PA being, PSAC schools and being state schools and maybe having smaller roster sizes, I think it's easier for offensive linemen to fall through the cracks. You go to Ohio and, you're loaded with a bunch of private Division IIs like Ohio Dominican. And, it's a little bit easier to carry your bigger roster, and it's a little bit easier to throw a little bit of, money at somebody to get them on your roster. So I thought, it's really tough to build interior consistency year in, year out at the Division III level. And that's why it's so important year in, year out that you make that a priority as you're continuing to build your roster.
So we go from you go back to both your alma maters, you move on to Lindsey Wilson, and then there's down the road there from where you are. Well, actually, where you are right now, I believe, in Wheeling, West Virginia, there's a brand new, sparkly new program that gets created, and you're a part of that. So how did that all come about?
Yeah. So, I live in Wheeling, West Virginia, which is just 30 minutes south of Bethany. So I'm not too far away from Bethany's campus, but, my wife and I, we love Wheeling and our time here. So we wanted to live here, just be close to church and some family friends. But so Zach Bruni got the head football job here at Wheeling, formerly Wheeling Jesuit University. He was the offense coordinator at Ohio Dominican when I was there as a GA coaching tight ends. And he just called me up and, was like, hey, this is going to be, an opportunity for you to, really good full-time position, recruiting coordinator, probably slide into, a higher offensive position, on the staff, potential coordinating opportunities. And it was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up because, what I always tell people when you're a young coach in college football, a lot of it's just survival. You're looking for that next opportunity that's going to, hopefully solidify your stay in college football because it's a tough profession. So I was excited. I didn't know much about the Ohio Valley. I didn't know much about Wheeling Jesuit. I didn't know much about the area, but I quickly fell in love with the area. That's for sure.
Now, so you go from, I believe this is where you make your way to the O-line for a little bit. You get to work, get to work with them big hog mauls down there, and you get your coordinator feet wet. Now, what was, when you're scripting out a game, let's talk about the beginning here at Wheeling. When you're scripting out a game, is it 10 plays? Is it 15? What is your comfort zone for that opening series or two? And how do you make that decision? Is that based off of what you're seeing on the film all week?
Yeah, and I think that's something that you're constantly evolving. Like I feel like I'm constantly trying to tweak my process in terms of how I go about things. When I was at Wheeling University, I think I scripted maybe 10 plays. I think that's what I tried to do, especially being a first-time coordinator, being in the Mountain East, good conference. Like you want to do your best, the script for success and try to create some positive momentum early in the game. Being a program with a bunch of young guys, that was always a challenge. So had to be really diligent on the front end in terms of just preparation and scripting for some success. That's for sure. And then as I've evolved as a play caller, I think I've gotten away from scripting though. Sometimes I'm just like, hey, I like this thought process, and then let's just instantly get a feel for what they're trying to do and try to exploit that the best that we can.
Now, and that's interesting because we've talked to coaches about how their philosophy has kind of changed as they go through the journey and the survival of coaching. What was the biggest difference for you when you left Wheeling and decide, I believe you go and join Coach Hilbert out there at B-Dub. Baldwin Wallace, who was our first guest of this season. So he kicked off the Division III coaches.
Hey, that's a great one to kick it off with. That's a great guy to kick it off with.
What was it about that program and Coach Hilbert that you really felt like it was a good move to go over? And from what I've heard, it was a very successful 2 seasons there with Coach Hilbert.
Yeah. So, when I got a call from Coach Hilbert, just an opportunity to be part of a program that was highly successful, was winning a lot of ball games. I knew Coach Hilbert a little bit just through when Brian Foose was there, Coach Foose was there. Mm-hmm. So I knew him a little bit through that. One of my buddies that I coached or I played with, Dean Collison, he was the offensive line coach there. And Baldwin Wallace just has such a great, it's great facilities. It's a great university. It's just a very good place. And, the thought of going there and having an opportunity to completely run the show in terms of the offense, that was really exciting to me. But that was also on the flip side, that was the scariest part, going away from Coach Bruni, who was kind of, my parachute essentially in terms of, calling an offense and game planning. He was that guy, that sounding board that, if things weren't working, well, he was the guy that can kind of, bring it all together and try to get it back on the right track. And that the reality is Coach Hilbert's a defensive head football coach. So if the offense isn't working, there's nowhere to go but with me. So, kind of that it's
sink
almost
or
a
swim.
Good, yeah, it's a good fear, right? It's a motivator that you got to figure this out, and things are going to go wrong, things aren't going to work the way that you want to work, and you got to figure them out. So that was really exciting about that opportunity.
Well, now I got to ask you the question. I reserved this question for OAC people. You coached in the OAC, so I have to ask you. That conference over there in Ohio has dubbed themselves the SEC of Division III. Do you agree? Wow, there's the rhyme of the century.
Yeah. So going from the OAC 21 and then this past year 22 being in the PAC, I just think they're completely different leagues. I do think that the OAC is, I think on the perimeter might have a little bit more athleticism, might have a little bit more speed, but I do think in the PAC, the interior, the O lines, the D lines, they're big. I mean, there are really good football players up front in the PAC. And I think that is a great equalizer. And I think the best example of that is when Washington Jefferson plays John Carroll. The fact that they beat them 2 years in a row, and W&J, I mean, they were good, obviously, in the PAC, but, I don't think in either of those years they won it. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a good indicator that, the top teams in the PAC can beat the top teams in the OAC. And I think it has to do with how good the play is up front. I mean, the offense and defensive lines. I mean, you look at some of the defensive ends that were in the conference this past year. Oh my gosh! I mean, there were some special football players. So yes, I know the OAC will say every single day that they are the best conference in the region. But I do think the fact that a lot of teams in our conference up front can go toe to toe with them, and if not, might be better in a lot of cases. That's a great equalizer and gives them opportunity to win those football games.
Well, and it's funny you say that because you can point to the W&J John Carroll games. You can point to the playoff game where I think Carnegie Mellon was the only team that gave North Central a game. I mean, it was a little dicey North Central didn't struggle to get through once they got past, but I think that game was a 7 to 10 point game where Carnegie Mellon is not. You're not thinking that that's what they're going to do with the run that North Central had. Right. But now we're going to come up to speed. We're here in the PAC. First off, why Bethany for you?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons. The first thing that jumped out to me was just my connection to this area, spending 3 years in the Ohio Valley and just absolutely fall in love with the area. My wife and I, we feel like it's home. Our church is here, the relationships that we built while we were at Wheeling University. It's a special place to us, and having an opportunity to come back here. Even before we moved back here, I always told people in my adult life, even living in my hometown of Eaton, the Ohio Valley, Wheeling is the place that felt most like home in my adult life. And having an opportunity to come back here, I didn't take that very lightly. So, I mean, that was the first thing. And then the second thing was just the current president, Jamie Caridi. He was at Ohio Dominican while I was there as a player and as a graduate assistant. So there's a relationship going back there, and there's some trust that goes back there that things will be done the right way, and I'll have the support to be able to build something out of a program that has struggled in the last few years. And the combination of those two things, I think, allowed my wife and I to say yes to coming here. I think those were the two biggest things.
Now, I have to ask you, you've obviously made your way down to Chambers. You've tried a breakfast sandwich. You've done a special. Look, Harry would be very upset if I didn't take advantage of this is our new way of sending him as a commercial for the show.
Yeah.
So just make sure for those of you in Bethany, if you haven't, get yourself down to Chambers. Make sure you get a breakfast sandwich. Tell him I said hi. 50-cent cup of coffee. So, Coach, you get your first win against Hiram, which I believe came in week 1, right?
Yeah.
Now, what was that like for you? Get that first one out of the way and the way 26-16 victory.
Yeah, I mean, it was a relief. There's no doubt about that. You look back on that game, the fact that we didn't win a game the rest of the year, and you go back to that game and we did have some really nice, breaks come in that game that allowed us to win it. But you can also go back and look at that game and be like, we struggled in a lot of areas. So the fact that we were able to win that game and get the first one, it was a really nice relief, and very thankful that we got it.
Well, and it's the other two games that kind of jump out to me, the Teal game, obviously, and then the Allegheny game, which both of those programs are now, well, one of them has a second-year coach. I believe he came in the same year as you. And Allegheny coming in, we just had him on the show a couple weeks ago. Coach Lair, he'll be now as a new coach. Is there any advice that you give to a new guy coming into the PAC? Can you tell us kind of what they're going through as you went through it last year?
Yeah, I've obviously spoken with both those coaches, and Coach Lair, the one thing we talked about was just being hired late in the process, and then really trying to build a class and doing the best that you can from that standpoint, because you got to build a roster in a very short amount of time, and that's a huge challenge. So I think we were able to relate in those two areas. I think he was actually hired later than I was, at Bethany. So I know the challenges that are coming with that, but the advice, is just you're going to take some growing pains, and you just got to roll with it, and you got to stay consistent, stay level headed, and just keep learning from everything good and bad.
Now, Coach, what are you looking for in a Bison? What's the ideal student athlete to come to the program that you're looking for going into, the 2024 recruiting class and forward?
Yeah. So going into 2023, obviously the class of 22, I was, picking up the pieces the best that I could, getting hired in mid-February. So, you couldn't be too picky from that standpoint. But going into 23, going through my first season in the PAC, you kind of get a glimpse for what wins in this conference. And what wins is, high character, high quality young men that do well academically, that play really hard. So we started prioritizing some of those other areas instead of just straight up film, straight up, they got the measurables, they got the look. We wanted to build this class with, guys that love football, that are high quality individuals. They come on campus and you kind of feel that connection to them. You feel like you're able to build something with them. And I think we got a lot of young men like that. So, I mean, you want to build, the program with guys that are committed, can hold themselves accountable, and, guys that just want to be part of winning programs. And winning programs aren't just teams that win football games. They're programs that do everything right off the football field, on the football field, in the weight room, in the classroom, whatever it is, they want to do things the right way. And, when they mess up, they want to be held accountable, and they want to grow from it. So, I'm not looking for, saints. I'm not looking for guys that are finished products, but I'm looking for guys that are willing to, come to Bethany and grow as individuals, grow as football players, and in all areas of their lives. So, that's what I'm looking for.
And then from the recruit standpoint, why Bethany? Same question I asked you as coming in as a coach. What's the selling point to an 18-year-old student looking at colleges?
Yeah, I think the first thing is you got to get them on campus, right? So you got to get them on campus, however you can do that. In terms of, whether it's an academic program, whether it's the belief in what we're building. So then once you get them on campus, you got to give them a really, really good experience. They got to see as much as possible. Obviously, Bethany is a gorgeous campus. I mean, it is, you step on campus, especially right now in the summer, it's breathtaking. It is a beautiful campus. So I think a lot of guys just naturally fall in love with, the campus and just everything that goes into it from that standpoint. And, we got to spend time with them as coaches. We got to build a relationship, a better relationship with them once they get on campus. We got to show them as much as we can from a campus facility, what we're about football wise, what we're about as men. Mm-hmm. The parents, we gotta convey to them how we're going to develop their young men to better men once they graduate from Bethany. So that visit experience, we got to touch upon a lot of different things, so it can feel like home. Very
mm-hmm.
much so like how when I went to Ohio Dominican, I wanted to be that same experience. I want them to be able to say, yeah, when Coach so and so talked to me, and he knew who I was, and he knew about my film, he knew what my coaches were saying about me, all these different things it's a personal touch. And, I think that's how you recruit young men to Bethany, how you do a good job recruiting.
And so for the 2023 season, what can we expect from the Bethany Bison? I know we haven't stepped foot on a field yet camp hasn't started, so we're not sure how that's all going to play out. But what are your expectations for the 2023 season?
Well, my expectations are that we just continue to grow. Like, we're better mm-hmm. fundamentally. We are better in how hard we play. We are better in our techniques. We're just better in everything that we do, from a process standpoint, from a fundamental standpoint. And I know, eventually that is going to turn into wins. Mm-hmm. I know that. So that is my expectation. And, I felt like we took some good strides this spring. So I'm excited to get the guys back on campus so we can start to, get to work and create those habits that are our championship habits.
And then what's the message for the alumni? Because we both know that the Bethany, the Bison alumni they sit in their tent in the one end zone, and they're a heck of a group. So what's the message for them going into the 2023 season?
Well, I think the message is that we're going to make them proud. I think, we do things the right way. Last year, I thought we took steps in the right direction in terms of playing with class and poise. We were one of the least penalized teams in the conference because we were doing things the right way. We were focused on the next play. We were doing things the right way. We weren't doing dumb stuff between plays. And that's going to continue. And then we're just going to continue to grow in our fundamentals and our understanding of our schemes. And we're going to put a better quality product out there on the football field. So I think the message is we're going to make them proud in the growth that we make this fall.
Coach, do you guys have an easier pipeline of student athletes with the location of Bethany, with being in the Ohio Valley, being 20 minutes from Avella and then working your way into Western Pennsylvania? I know W&J is down half hour to 40 minutes down the road. I think Geneva is the next closest school. Is there a little bit of a bubble that Bethany has in that little region that they can recruit the heck out of?
Well, we got to keep hitting upon those schools. We got to rebuild those relationships. If you look across the river, we had some success at Edison this past recruiting cycle, which is mm-hmm. Just outside of Steubenville. So we had some success there. But we got to get into a lot of these Washington County schools. Washington Jefferson's there, and they've done a great job of getting the best of the best in Washington County, and we got to start have some success in those areas. And then obviously in the little pocket right outside of Bethany, we gotta do better in Brooke County. Brooke County's got a lot of really good football players in this class coming up, and I would like to see some of them continue to wear the green just a little bit. Not that I think they're
not that
yellow. I think they got green and yellow, so green and white. So but keep the green. So I'd like to get some of those Brooke County players as well. But we got to continue to just do better here in the Ohio Valley and Western PA. Within like a 30 to 45 minute radius, we got to do a great job. And at some point, if we can build some success, I know we'll be able to get some Steubenville guys, that type of deal, because they want to be part of winning programs. And it's the same thing with the Wheeling Park kids, the Wheeling Central Catholic, Lindsley. They want to be part of winning programs because that's what they're used to. So we got to demonstrate to them that we're doing things the right way and we're competitive and we can win some ball games to get the young men from those programs.
All right, Coach, we've come to the point where these questions have nothing to do with football. They are just about you. It's a lightning round. We have 5 questions total. So the first one, you could live anywhere in the world. Where would it be and why?
Geez, it's so terrible because I just instantly go Wheeling, West Virginia. I love it here. It feels like home. And that's so it's cheesy. I know.
What's the most important lesson that you've learned over your career?
Don't sweat the small stuff. Things happen. Just keep moving. keep moving forward.
If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing and why?
Jeez. Well, I already taught, and that didn't go well. I got out of that. So maybe working in construction with my dad.
All right. Best compliment you've ever received?
Bill Connolly said I was detail oriented.
The other side of compliments. Best insult you've ever received?
Oh man. Did you say best insult?
In your opinion, the best insult.
So like oh geez. I don't know. I graze over insults pretty quickly. I don't even listen to them. I'm sure there's been some, I don't know.
And then the last question, we wrap up every show this way. Coach, was there a question that you were expecting to get today? And if so, how would you have answered it?
I feel like everybody's just like, how many wins are you going to get this season? I feel like that's always the go-to. And, with that one, I'm always just like, I don't know. I'm not a, goal. Here's our win total that we're going to touch upon. The reality is, if we're dedicated to the process and we do things the right way, the wins will naturally take care of themselves. But, I feel like I get asked that question a lot. How many wins are you going to have this year? Just focused on the first one.
It's the beginning of rebuilding from your end of the program. I can't expect, as an alumni, I'm not going to come to you and go, hey coach, so you've been here for a cup of coffee now. When are we going to start? We getting 10 this year, or how are we going to do this? So,
I appreciate that.
Plus, I also, listen, I spent a lot of time in Bethany. I know that the amount of that question being asked anytime you walk down the street has to be probably getting to you in your head. So, Coach, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us. I will let you know we are, as a crew, we're going to be going to 10 games this year. I know we will see you on the road for one of those games. I can't release the date of that game yet, but I know that I will see you on the road, but I'm sure if I know myself, we will probably make our way to ye old Bethany one more time, come up there to Bison Stadium and have ourselves a ball. So I want to say thank you again for taking the time. And I know we do this editorial with Serenity Brown. We're going to change that and just call it overtime because it doesn't end up being an editorial. It ends up being where we sit there and talk for 5 minutes. So that's what we're coming back to, Chuckleheads. We'll be right back.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Kajell Whyte. That's Serenity Brown. This is the OT Pick'em with Serenity Brown. Just to update you on the standings, it was a very rough week for the host of this show, DB, sitting still in first place at 38-12. Serenity and I are now tied for second with 36-14. Can I just say I'm really impressed at some of the games that you've picked that we haven't gotten right. Like on the side that like it's kind of our job to watch the games and look at the stats. And
are you saying you're impressed by me?
I am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm impressed.
I think I'm normally rude to you right out the gate, and I'm going to try this new way of like I'm going to lull you with kindness.
Well, the picks are already done, so there's not really much you can do right now.
Obviously, we just finished up with Coach Robinson, the head coach of Bethany College, going into his second year. As alumni, clearly, it was an important interview. It's the first time we've gone back to the Bethany well, not this season per se, but specifically coaches-wise, this is where the show started, and now kind of full circle moment. We're actually in talks with a couple other Bethany people to get them on the show now as their new roles. Hint, hint, he has a beard. It's a very nice beard. I don't know if he has one now, though, because he's the athletic director. But that being said, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you're listening to us on Spotify, actually you can watch us on Spotify as well because the videos are there. We really appreciate you. Make sure you hit the like button or the little bell so you can get the notifications from us. Please subscribe. It helps drastically. Also, follow us on the social medias. That's X, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. The only one that's different is the Instagram page. It's Dingo_Talk. If you were here many months ago, it was Dingo_Talk. So don't go to that one. It's Dingo_Talk. So what we're really here for,
the picks. Bethany's obviously the game of the week. We'll pick it last. Here's our 10. Number 23, Grove City versus Geneva.
Well, we're picking Grove City.
Everybody's picking Grove City.
Everybody's picking Grove City.
And there's a little bit of a reason. You want to give the reason, or you want me to give the reason?
No, that's you. This is your show.
The reason being is that we've picked against Grove City 3 weeks in a row, and 3 weeks in a row, Grove City has burned us.
Shut us up. Really
kind of running the table in the PAC of the teams. That they have a very tough schedule when you're talking beating Case Western at Case in overtime, beating Carnegie Mellon, and then holding off W&J last week. So all of us, including Salvatore, picked Grove City. Sal doesn't get a pick. We just give him the 10 games and let him think that he's involved.
Stop.
So, well, he doesn't watch the show anyway, so it's okay. He's not going to know.
Continue with the picks.
Another familiar face. They will not leave the board until they lose. The number 3 team in the country, University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, playing the number 14 team in the country, UW La Crosse. Again, straight across the board.
Whitewater.
Another team that has not been removed from the board until they lose. They've been there every week, I believe. The number 11 team, Susquehanna versus Keystone College. And again,
Susquehanna.
Following up with that, we are looking at Aurora, the number 15 team in the country, Aurora versus Concordia Chicago. And we all picked
Aurora.
All right, now here's where things get a little dicey. DB got to pick 5 games. We picked 5 games. Obviously, the game of the week is one of those 5. But number 25, Barry versus Southwestern Texas.
I was the only one that picked different.
DB and I picked Barry.
And I picked Southwestern Texas.
And that trend is gonna continue down this road. The next one up is Illinois College versus Chicago University.
I was also the odd one out and picked Chicago.
And we both picked Illinois. Now this one, I'm the oddball out. Rhodes versus Millsaps. You and DB?
Rhodes.
I picked Millsaps. Sal and Serenity are the only two that picked Kenyon in the upset, is what Sal said. Give me Kenyon in the upset. We haven't gotten DB's game yet where I can inject his. But Kenyon versus Ohio Wesleyan, DB and I, Ohio Wesleyan. I mean, I already gave your pick. Did you just say it?
I was going to say you already gave my pick. It's Kenyon.
Next up is Eastern Texas Baptist University versus Howard. All 3 of us
picked Howard.
DB would like to let the people at Howard know that they need to make their website a little bit more accessible. He struggled, and
it may have been user error.
In his defense, I don't consider DB a technologically savvy guy. So, he's probably better with technology than me, but that's not saying much. So we all picked Howard. And then in our game of the week, we were actually supposed to go to this game. Coach Benzel had invited us up for the game. Obviously, financially, it's just not feasible. Everybody's dealing with the finances of life. So, Bethany versus Westminster at Westminster. I'm rolling with, and I hate to say it, as an alumni of Bethany, I'm rolling with the Mustang. I'm taking the Mustang.
That's funny because
we all took the Mustang. In fact, it was a unanimous consensus.
Yeah.
That Westminster, and it's nothing against Bethany. It's just it's been a tough go. It's been a tough go this season. I think that it's hard to judge a team in the second year of a new head coach. You're working in a new system. You're still trying to get your recruiting grounds. And I hope that this show kind of shows that Coach Robinson has a dedication to Bethany, and I'm rambling. So, with that being said, is there anything you'd like to add?
No.
You want to go take a nap?
Yeah, I do.
All right. We'll see you next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.